Hello guys, welcome to Gustav's programming tutorials. In earlier lessons, we learned how to store values in variables and use them usually only once, but never more than a few times. In recent lessons, we also gained the ability to efficiently use variables many times by placing them in loops. However, we might encounter situations in which storing just one value at a time in memory does not meet our needs. For example, we want to determine the average values 1 to 20. When we assign 1 to a variable, we can't determine the average from that alone until we have assigned all values from 1 through to 20. Unfortunately, if we attempt to assign all the numbers to the same variable, the first value is replaced by the second, and so on till the variable contains the last assigned value. A possible solution is to create 20 separate variables, each with a unique name, so we can store all the values until we can determine any average. A drawback to this method is that if you have 20 different variable names to be assigned values, you need 20 separate assignment statements. Now, for 20 different variable names, the statement that calculates total sales will be unwidely, such as total equals var1 plus var2 plus var3 plus var4 plus and so on. This method might work for 20 values, but what if we had 10,000 values to compute? The best solution is to create an array. An array is a named list of data items called elements or components that all have the same type. Arrays are objects, so they are considered reference types. As we will soon see, what we typically think of as an array is actually a reference to an array object in memory. The element of an array can be either primitive types or reference types, including arrays. Declaring an array. We declare an array variable in the same way you declare any simple variable, a data type and the identifier. But because it is an array, we insert a pair of square brackets after the data type. In other programming languages like C and C++, the square brackets is placed after the identifier. Arrays can be of any type. So, for example, to create an array of integers to hold account numbers, we can write the following: int square brackets account numbers. Similarly, to create an array of double values to hold sales numbers for sales personnel, we can write the following: double square bracket sales accounts. Some arrays of other types are char square bracket char array, then string square bracket string array. You can provide any legal identifier you want for an array, but Java programmers conventionally name arrays by following the same rules they use for variables. That is, array names start with a lowercase letter, then use uppercase letters to begin subsequent words. Additionally, many programmers observe one of the following conventions to make it more obvious that the name represents a group of items. 1. Because arrays store multiple items, they often are named using a plural noun such as ID numbers. 2. Arrays often are named by adding a final word that implies a group, such as sales list, accounts table, or accounts array. After you create an array variable, you still need to reserve memory space. Now, declaring an array and reserving memory space for it are two distinct processes. So, to reserve memory locations for 10 ID numbers values, you can declare the array variable and create the array with two separate statements as follows: int square bracket ID numbers, and then ID numbers equal new int square bracket between, you have 10. Alternatively, just as with objects, you can declare and create an array in one statement with the following: int square bracket ID numbers equals new int, and then the square bracket which has the 10. The keyword new is used to create array objects and reserve memory for them. When you declare or access an array, you can use any expression to represent the size, as long as the expression is an integer. Java allows the following expressions for representing the size of the array: 1. A literal string constant. 2. A named integer constant. 3. An integer variable. 4. A calculation. 5. A method's return value. The statement int square bracket ID numbers equals new int square bracket 10 reserves 10 memory locations for 10 int values. You can distinguish each ID numbers item from the others with a subscript. A subscript is an integer contained within square brackets that specifies one of an array's elements. You might hear the word index used instead of subscript. In Java, any array's elements are numbered beginning with 0 and ending with the size -1. So you can legally use any subscript from 0 through 9 when working with an array that has 10 elements. In other words, the first ID numbers array element is ID numbers subscript 0, and the last ID numbers element is ID numbers subscript 9. If you use a subscript that is too small, that is negative, or too large for an array, the subscript is said to be out of bounds and an error message is generated. Now, here is how the first few and last few elements of an array of 10 ID numbers values appear in computer memory. Now, as with variables, we can create several arrays in a single declaration. So, for example, we can create a declaration that reserves 50 elements for x and 15 elements for y. By doing this, string square bracket x equals new string square bracket 50, comma, y equals new string square bracket and then 15, semicolon. In this case, you only need to give the type of the array and square brackets at the beginning of the declaration. Then all other identifiers in the declaration are array variables. The following is an equivalent to the above: string square bracket x equals new string 50, semicolon, and then string square bracket y equals new string 15. Now, once an array is declared and memory reserved, Java automatically assigns values to the array elements. So, for instance, let's access an array element of ID numbers array. To do that, let's say we want to access the fifth element. We type system.out.println, then id numbers subscript 4. Let's run the program. And we get 0. Now let's copy and paste this code 2 more times. And then let's change the subscripts to 8 and then 10. We run it and we get zeros and then an error that says exception in thread main java.lang array index out of bounds exception 10 at array intro.main array intro.java. This happened because a last array subscript is always one less than the size. If we want to display everything, we can just use a for loop. So, before that, let's comment out some of these declarations. Now, our headings system.out.println, the string index, and the tab character, then values. For our for statement, for parenthesis int index equals 0 semicolon index less than 10 semicolon, then plus plus index, then our curly braces. Now the output statement, the string tab character, then plus the index variable, then plus another string with 2 tab characters, then the plus id numbers, and then we put the index in the square brackets. Now let's run the program. In our output window, you can see that the values assigned automatically is 0 for all elements. We will end our lesson here for today and continue in the next video. Thank you for watching this video, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.